So in this video, I'm going to share my journey learning to use AI tools to build projects, web apps, and in this case, I built an e-commerce web app. So this video honestly is going to be just absolutely going all in onto the whole journey. And what I've done is I've created a mind map in Miro, and this is just to show you all the things that I've learnt producing a live web app. So this is just to show you the many different things that you're going to do, and I'm going to touch on the different things and also some of the code, Cursor AI, and also the live web app. So let me just take you through a quick demo. So this is actually live right now. So that nice logo.com, and yeah, there's a lot about the naming. It's 3 words, it's long but it's short, and the branding, it has the word logo in it. Now before I get into the whole project, is why did I do this project? And so as a designer, I've created Figma templates, and when you submit it to the marketplace, you are not allowed to use real logos. For example, when you have sections such as this tool is used by these companies, and then you have logos like Nike and other big company names, you cannot use those. So that's why I decided to start designing fictional logos. So I thought, as a project, why not make it into a digital product and then learn how to make an e-commerce store. So here we are. Now this is the live view, or this is the actual real thing. So if we go into one of them, you can see it's even using frame of motion. You just scroll down to see different variants, different sizes. You can check the product details. There is the license as well, and we can buy the logo, and this will take you to the payment, which is lemon squeezy. And there was a lot of time was gone into choosing between lemon squeezy or Stripe or other payment services such as Paddle. So I shall also get into that. Now the other thing is, you also got this really nice light and dark mode as well, which is all done by ShadCN, Next.js. And also we have a very simple about page, which I created as well, and this is all using Next.js app router, which is the latest structure. And if we go into blog, so this is not completely working in terms of the content, but I was trying to use MDX, which then lets you use React components in your blog post, but this is pure markdown, which I still think is great. So this is also an article that I published as well, because SEO is going to be important. So yeah, this is basically the web app, and you can buy all of these as well. And just to take you through the Figma, so Figma is not coming up. Let me just show you, because this is where I started as well. So this is from a designer perspective. So you can see, if I was just to hide the UI, you can see this is kind of where I started, and then I thought, okay, we need a value proposition or heading considering SEO. So you got placeholder logo, which I know is a term that is searched for, and then you got the detail view showing the different variants. There's also going to be a subscribe as well, which is also another huge thing. So you need to provide value. So that's where I thought of, okay, if I can offer a free logo, and then from there, what I actually started to do was starting to share this in Twitter and asking for feedback. So I posted pictures of the minimal concept versus this is for the home page versus, so yeah, so should we show images or should we show images of the logo in the web app, for example, this view. So the feedback was they prefer this style to show on the home page, and this is why you're seeing it like this on the home page. So again, I was trying to get feedback on X, or Twitter. So let's just get back into the meat of it, and let's go back to Miro. And so I had to create 2 branches or 2 mind maps, because it's just absolutely insane what you're going to go through. So let's just start off with the AI, because that is the one that kind of helped me bring everything together. And I have knowledge in some of these areas, but without Cursor AI, surely I would not be able to build this web app within 3 weeks. That's how long it took. Maybe I wouldn't even be able to launch it, to be honest. So this is the massive thing with AI. So let's just start off with Cursor. So Cursor enabled me to build the whole app, and I put the price there. Now don't quote me on the prices. I think this is $20 a month. It's just an amazing tool, honestly. So let me just take you into the code. So you can see here, this is using the app router, Next.js, ShadCN, and what I love about it is here I can put in things like, so this is in the window here. So can you make an about page with the app router? So I'm specifying the app router. It will have 2 columns, include the header component. The left column will be a third with a heading and 3 paragraphs. So it did the code, it imported the header component, it did all of that. And then I started saying, can we make it full height? So I started making adjustments. So this is a really nice thing about Cursor AI. However, with power comes responsibility. So this is where I recommend you build out your features one at a time. And this is kind of how modern teams work. So we'll get into all of that. We'll get into Git as well, because Git version control is very important. Now, in terms of Claude, so Claude and ChatGPT, they're kind of like, it's like a team. You got 2 like extra developers, product managers, designers. You could kind of think of this as your team, including VO. So what I love about ChatGPT is to talk about spec. Now, if you don't know what a spec is, it's the blueprint for building, designing a web app. I might not explain it very well, but I wasn't too familiar with what a spec is. I just asked that question in ChatGPT. But I have come across one when I worked with a product manager where he showed me a spec. He wanted to say, hey, we need some user stories, we need some user flows, we're going to need some designs. So I did have some familiarity with it. However, the reason why I'm talking about a spec is because it's like a business plan or blueprint for the web app. So if you can get ChatGPT to give you a basic spec, you can then fill in the gaps. So let me just take you into Claude. So here's an example. Let me just get rid of that. So the wonderful thing about Claude is I just prompted, I said, you are a senior developer who can build e-commerce web apps for digital products using the stack. Let me know what you think about the spec attached. So this spec was generated by ChatGPT. However, what I had to do was fill in the gaps. So the more detail you can come in with, the better the Claude could give an opinion. So here, these are the things I think that's often overlooked when it comes to designing. These are the things that you don't really see, because what we are doing now, if you're going to build your own app, is you're building the whole thing, and you really have to plan properly at the beginning, and that is what a spec is. So the purpose of this web app is to sell copyright-free SVG logos, which I kind of changed. I'm kind of positioning it to placeholder logos. They can use in their projects such as this web app will be an MVP with a minimal budget, so we need low maintenance. So I'm talking about the product here, the logo data, business requirements, So the app is to increase sales, target audience, designers and developers, user stories. As a user, I want to browse a list of logos so that I can make a purchase. That's just one simple flow. Functional requirements. This section details the features. So sign up, login, password, a list of logos. You can see the amount of detail you go into. So use authentication. So number 4, non-functional requirements. So you talk about performance, talk about security. I know MKBHD, there was a lot of talk about his new app, and I can absolutely sympathize with him, because I could make so many mistakes. But the nice thing about this is it's prompting about security, so you have to be aware of this. The app needs to be SEO friendly. Design spec, user flow. The user makes a single purchase. You go on a success page, email confirmation. There's just a lot to go into, which is why I didn't go with Stripe in the end. I went with Lemon Squeezy, which I will touch on. The same flow will happen if the user decides to buy it all. Okay, implementation steps. So again, this is this is just amazing what ChatGPT can do, and you just have to fill in the gaps with your experience. If you don't have experience, this is probably where you need to ask more questions of ChatGPT, like what is a user flow, for example, technical spec, tech stack, front end, back end. I don't even know what back end I'm using, I'm being totally honest. I'm familiar with the front end. Superbase, we didn't even go with a database, and I'll explain that later. Stripe for payments. So I was absolutely hell-bent on using Stripe because I wanted to learn Stripe. And it did get to the point where I did get it to work. But because I was asking ChatGPT, what is the difference between Lemon Squeezy, Paddle, Stripe, it absolutely gave me the answer that I needed. So anyway, let's quickly, analytics, Umami to track events. So there's so much to get into. Risks and assumptions. Oh, let me just make sure I don't stop this video. Risks, potential roadblocks, API rates limits. Wow, I mean, again, I'm not familiar with this, but I actually came across this when sending out emails. I actually hit a limit in Superbase. So this is to protect you from, for example, if you're using AI, if you're using token systems, you can go over the limit. So you need a way of warning you. Anyway, that's just me talking gibberish. So yeah, this is why a spec is important. So this spec was generated by ChatGPT. I then fill in the gaps. I then put this into Claude, because I'm asking Claude, you are a senior developer who can build X products. Let me know what you think about the spec attached. Okay, so now Claude is giving me overall the spec provides an outline. Here are my thoughts. Project scope is well defined. Tech user flow. Okay, data storage, use Superbase for both. Storage buckets, this is for the actual files. However, for the logo, that you might want to consider a hybrid approach. Store the basic information in Superbase, but keep the actual SVG files in a CDN. Makes sense, right? Email integration. Yeah. And I'm using resend, so that's another thing. Overall, the spec provides a solid foundation. You may want to consider future enhancements. Would you like me to elaborate? So I'm going to use Cursor AI to help build a web app. Can you give me an overview, step by step, on what to build first? For example, once I have the ShadCN done, code homepage, should I set up the table? Should I do authentication? What should I do? Because I have actually no clue. So this is where Claude or even ChatGPT can come in handy again. It will outline the plan, the development plan, what you do step by step, because what you don't want to do is just go into cursor and say, hey, build me an e-commerce app, right? You need to really break it down. So yeah, it's a lot. So now that Claude has given me a spec and it has given me step by step what to do, this is where you then go into cursor. You then put in the prompts. Now, the thing about cursor is you're going to come across errors, and that is a big thing I've noticed. You're going to have a lot of errors, and you're going to have to just put the error in cursor and just prompt, how do I fix this error? And you're going to be doing that quite a lot. However, if you can, the better your spec is and the better your prompting is, then the less errors I'm assuming you will get. So another example is cursor.rules. So there is a website called cursor.directory, and this is pretty important because this just outlines to the AI how you want your code to be. And not getting too deep into this, but for example, minimize the use client use effect. This is for performance. That is pretty good. We're using TypeScript. Okay, so this is pretty important. Another thing that I had to do quite a lot was this feature in here. So if I do @ so you can go to docs, you can create a new doc. So what I started doing was I started adding Next.js, Supabase, ShadCN, Umami for analytics. I actually went specific Next.js authentication, server-side auth Next.js sign out. And even if I search for resend, I went very specific on the page. So the audience feature, the broadcast, because I've sometimes found that maybe I wasn't doing it properly, but if I went specific with the documentation, it seemed to help. So let's talk about VO or V0, right? So V0 should get a mention because V0 is absolutely insane as well. And again, from a designer perspective, you can, let's say, what I'm going to do is actually add this image. Okay, so this image is the home page, which is this one. Okay, so can you build this home page gallery, home page list of logos? Right, so again, my prompting may be really bad. Enter, let's see what happens. And we are coming up to 18 minutes, and I don't even think I've got halfway through. To recreate this homepage, I use a React component that includes the header and the main content area with a logo showcase. Nice. Right, so there is some errors there. Okay. So you can see it's actually put in real text, but it's done a pretty good job of doing the main structure. And you got the nav here, which again is not exactly this, but again it's got the main items in, so you can see side by side is not actually too bad. And this is where I had to come in with my my experience of using Tailwind CSS to get it to look like the design. So once you have this, you can then put the code into Cursor AI. So this is a nice thing about VO. You could do the same for your detail screen. You could do the same for even this type of screen with the dialogue, a modal. So VO is pretty powerful. I haven't gone too deep into it, but again, VO is absolutely insane. Now, what else do we want to touch on? Okay, so let's do this branch. I'm calling these branches, right? So let's look into analytics, and this is important because you want to know if anyone is even going on your site, where the traffic is coming from. And the reason why I picked Umami is because of privacy. I know privacy is pretty important, and GDPR in terms of cookies. So I went with Umami, and also it's free to start. So again, as someone that's building MVPs and who's planning to build loads of products, I think this is a good solution. There's other solutions out there, but again, it's free to start. Now, in terms of the front end, these tools are trained on Next.js. So this is where I got lucky, where I was using Next.js already. And what this enabled me to do, as I showed you previously, is I could just easily build out a blog with Markdown, an about page, and then ShadCN. Now, from a designer developer perspective, it has all the components that you don't have to reinvent or redesign or recode. Well, when I say redesign, you can add a personality to it, but here you're just importing all the relevant components, and that just saves so much time. So I'll get into the subscribe thing in a minute. So yeah, this is when I touched on the dark and light theme. Now, hosting. This is where your website lives on the internet. And this is with Vercel. And this is $20 a month. So you can see the pricing now. This is the bulk of the pricing is from AI. So I'm paying $20 for Cursor, ChatGPT, and Vercel, which is the hosting. So that's $60. And the reason why I went with Vercel is because the whole ecosystem, when you go from Next.js, you have all your code locally, but then you need to deploy. So this is where Vercel comes in, because Vercel is the one behind Next.js. So yeah, that is a whole ecosystem that you're going to get into. But yeah, I just find it super convenient. And now for the domain, this is where I went with Namecheap. And I just roughly put in $10 per domain. Now, I also use DreamHost for hosting and domains. But what I found about Namecheap is just super quick when you do the DNS. This is when you need to point it towards Vercel. And also for emails, which I'll get into. Okay, so one topic is images. So you got all these nice big images, but you have to think about performance. So this is when I got into WebP format, not PNG or JPEG, and then you need a CDN to store the images. So this is where Cloudinary, this is where they come in, and it's very easy to put my images in Cloudinary, and then they can do all the responsive stuff, and again, it's free to start, so it's a no-brainer to use Cloudinary. Okay, so I think I should talk about payments, because that's a huge thing with this. So Lemon Squeezy, who've been recently acquired by Stripe. So I was hell-bent on going with Stripe, but what I started to realize is if you go with Stripe, you have to then think about storing the user's details or data, for example, email, the order details into a database. So that's where I was doing Supabase. But then you have to think about emails, right? You have to send an order confirmation saying, hey, you've purchased this and here's the download link. But then there has to be some sort of secure way for this. So that link would then time out. So let's say the user doesn't download and needs access to these purchases. So what do you do then? That's where you have to create a dashboard or order history page so that they can access it and then download the file. So, and then what you have to do then is think about authentication. You have to then give, you don't just let anyone log in. So there was a whole load of things to think about when it comes to Stripe. And this is where I was thinking about using Clerk or using Supabase authentication. So I got to the stage where I did manage to use Supabase Auth and Stripe. However, the thing about Lemon Squeezy is that not only does it host all your products, it provides receipts, it does tax, and also it gives the user access to their dashboard where they can see their order history. So it takes care of a lot of that headache, and I know that the fees are higher. However, in terms of my knowledge, I was thinking about I need to ship something. So this is where I then went back to Lemon Squeezy, and you just find out why they do a great job, because they take away a lot of the concerns that I was talking about earlier. Now, let's talk about Git, because I haven't done much coding. So Git is super important because this is what lets you version control your work. And it is so important because when you're building out feature by feature, you want to then commit that or create a branch. So let me give you an example. So let me just go back to Git branch list. So I just want to show you what I've been doing. You can see here what I've done is I created a whole bunch of branches. So when you start out, let's just say you're setting up the environment, you're getting Next.js, you're then just changing the home page to say hello world, you then commit that, and now according to the plan by Claude, you now want to go about doing the different features. So you can see maybe I should have numbers on there, but I then went with things like, okay, super base auth, let's see what else I did. Yeah, Cloudinary, blog, animation. This was frame of motion, analytics, refactor. Now the refactor was the point where I decided to not go with Stripe, so I had to refactor everything. So that means getting rid of all code that I didn't want to use and then move over to Lemon Squeezy. So I can see now I should probably be better with renaming or naming my branch. And then when you're happy, you then merge one of these branches into your main branch, and then you push that to Vercel, and that is when you have the live production site. So that is why that whole flow of going from Next to Vercel from Git, it's just the flow of everything. It just makes total sense, and it is totally worth it. So this is local on your machine. GitHub is where your code goes online, but obviously you can make it private. And once you have that repo on GitHub, you'll then, when you start a project with Vercel, you can then find that repository and then make it live. So there's a lot to get into. So nearly there. So the next bit is email. This is probably the last bit. Email is just absolutely insane. What you don't think about. So Zoho. So once you purchase a domain, you're going to then need an email. So this is where Zoho comes in, and they have a free starter plan, and they can use a custom domain. So that's a nice logo. So yeah, again, it's a no-brainer. You can have your own business email set up. And the reason why, again, is because when you have a payment system, you're going to then need some sort of email service. However, the reason why I needed this is because of a free lead magnet. Okay, so let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about. So get a free logo. So this is the free lead magnet. So you need to give value, right? So here, let me just put in my name. Gmail.com. Subscribe. So here there's a Sona component, subscribe successfully. This will then go into resend. So let me just go to resend. Let me just refresh that. You can see it's scheduled because I've scheduled it to be sent out a minute within subscribing. So that basically is the reason why I had to go with resend and not SendGrid. But the other reason why I went with Resend is because I know that it's popular in the development community. So I thought, why not learn Resend? And I can totally see why it's popular. The other thing about it is it can capture emails. So I don't need a Supabase or database. I can just store the user's email in Resend. And the broadcast is where you can then send marketing emails. And also you need to set up a subdomain, because this is what Resend recommends in terms of email best practices. So you don't want to send emails from thatsnicelogo.com. You want to send emails from updates.thatsnicelogo.com. And also the DK, the DKIM, the SPF, this is to do with emails. And again, the reason why I think Namecheap and Vercel is a good combination is because it's very easy to set that up. It was pretty easy, like done in like 10 minutes or so. So there's absolutely a lot that I got into there. So if you have any questions about this, please leave a comment. And what do you think about this project? So it's absolutely insane, and I learned a lot about this, huge amounts. A lot of this actual hard work was done in Figma as well. That is just something that haven't shared enough, but you can see the detail that I've gone into, where I had to prepare every single one. I had to then make it ready to export SVGs, PNGs. This is for every single one, dark and light versions as well. And then when you need to then create products and lemon squeezy, so each of them needs a product image. So think about it, that's like 10 logos. And you can buy the whole purchase pack as well. So this is where I had to do an image for the whole product pack, or if you buy all 10. And yeah, another thing about ChatGPT is, let me just go back to the mind map, is copy, right? So this is one thing I didn't really say in there, copy and text. So let me just go back to, so this text is all generated by ChatGPT. I obviously had to go over them, but the logo data, I had to think of a description per logo. So these logos, they're kind of targeted, or they're for specific niches. So this one, Oasis, sleek modern logo, innovation center, ideal for tech companies. Okay, so let's have a look at retro. So a placeholder logo with vintage appeal for brands that want to blend nostalgic designs with a futuristic twist. So again, the name and the description, they all have a meaning. They have a reason behind the name, the logo. Another thing to talk about is license. Okay, so again, ChatGPT did most of this, where I asked it about licensing. And my company, which is awesome, right? That is my company in the UK. This is where I do design work. This is where I partnered up with startups. And this is the digital products. This is thatsnicelogo.com. So if you're planning to build multiple products with AI, this is where you can have one main company. And again, I'm not a legal expert, but this is what I've been reading. And then you have all these side projects, which are domains. And this is how you reference it in your legal copy. So again, not being a legal expert, but where I'm going with this is becoming a design engineer that can build out ideas, of course, with the help of AI. So I'm not pretending to be a full stack developer. There's no way. This is just enabling me to be able to build web apps, and hopefully for you as well, because as you know, as a designer, things are getting tough. and this is where there's an opportunity for design engineers. And anyway, just to build out your own ideas, I think it's just an amazing thing, an amazing dream that you can do this. And also the next project that I'm planning to build is something pretty daunting and exciting at the same time. So I wanted to get your opinions on this, but I'll probably share that in another video or in the next community post. So please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. How do we stop the video? You can't.